speed over the next 24 hours or so. Let's take a look at Hugo right now as we take a look at what it looked like just a little while ago. There's the hurricane right there. Get a better perspective of this. You could take a look at it with our Atlantic satellite shot. It's continuing to push to the northwest, like I said, at 17. Here are the coordinates, if you're plotting at home. 27.0 north, 73.0 west. Max winds at 105 miles per hour, and it's moving northwest, like I said, at 17 miles per hour. And it will continue that northwesterly movement. As far as strike probabilities, we are questioning right now the Charleston area down to around Savannah. Now, as far as what kind of storm surge to expect, it's kind of early yet. We'll have more on that as we move into time. But let's take a look at another graphic here that I have. In fact, let's take a look at that watch. And we still have that watch out now from the St. Augustine, Jacksonville area to Cape Hatteras, right up along the North Carolina coast. Now, as far as our strike probabilities, the Charleston to Savannah area seems to be the most probable right now. It was at 14% a little while ago. It's probably come up, and it will continue to rise as this pushes toward the northwest. And as far as timing of the storm system, this is the important part. I think we'll see some gale winds by around dinner time tomorrow, and I think the center will pass somewhere between Charleston and Savannah by around 2 o'clock Friday morning. So we don't have too much time, and like Dr. Sheets says, we could see a warning as early as tomorrow.
That will be approaching high tide then, if I recall correctly.
Right, exactly. High tide, yes, it's not good. High tide is at around 2 o'clock in the morning on Friday, although it's not the excessive high tide that we have been having. The moon tides are in the afternoon. It'll be high up at about 5 feet or so, but the bad news is that it will come ashore. It looks like at around high tide.
So how much water then, or what exactly are we looking at?
We're looking at about 10 to 15 inches of rain. And as far as storm surge potential, if the storm comes anywhere within about 60 miles south of Charleston, we could see around 6 to 8 feet of storm surge along the beaches. That means heavy beach erosion. That means some very, very bad street flooding, and the barrier islands being cut off because those roads that go out there are so low.
That's kind of worst case scenario then.
That's the worst case scenario, although as we move into time and as the hurricane draws closer, that scenario seems to be getting a little better.
It would be better for us if the hurricane went to the north of Charleston, correct?
It would be better if it turned and went up to Wilmington right now, and we got on the back side of the winds. In other words, the winds would be more offshore than onshore.
The softer side.
Yeah, however, right now it looks like we just may catch the brunt of this storm.
We'd better be prepared for the worst case scenario.
Absolutely,
then.
you bet.
And now that it's moving faster, I mean, we're moving up our plan. Warnings tomorrow morning. They've prepared a statement, and the chairman of Charleston County Council, Linda Lombard, is getting ready to read that statement.
Ladies and gentlemen, Charleston County is now under a state of emergency. It is anticipated that Hurricane Hugo will be in the Charleston area earlier than first reported. Gale force winds are predicted by 3 p.m. tomorrow, Thursday, making weather conditions and travel conditions very dangerous. It is imperative that all residents of Charleston County, especially those living in beach areas, low-lying areas, barrier islands, property adjacent to tidal creeks, and all mobile home residents in the county leave as soon as possible. All residents who have a place to go, or who have relatives or friends inland, or who can go to an inland hotel or motel, are urged to leave tonight. Those who do not have a place to go are encouraged to report to one of the following shelters that is closest to them. In the Peninsula City, Fraser Elementary School, Rivers Middle School, James Simmons Elementary School, and Gilliard Auditorium. In the West Ashley area, St. Andrews High School, Drayton Hall Middle School. For Johns Island and Wadmalaw Islands, Hot Gap Middle School. In Youngs Island, Edisto, and the Hollywood area, Schroeder Middle School and Minnie Hughes Elementary School. For James Island and Folly Beach, report to James Island Middle School. For Mount Pleasant, the Isle of Palms, and Sullivan's Island, go to Wandome High School or Moultrie Middle School. In McClellanville and Owendell, go to Lincoln.
Savannah, maximum winds at 110 miles per hour, now bordering on a Category 3, and it's moving northwest at 17 miles per hour. Now, we do have a hurricane watch, as we know, in effect for all of South Carolina. We could see a warning in effect as early as 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, I think, for the Charleston area extending down to Beaufort. But once again, that's iffy, and it has to do with the National Hurricane Center. We'll find out. We're going to be talking to them here in a little while, in about 15 minutes or so, so we'll check on that. Let's take a look at our latest strike probabilities. These just came out. Charleston is the highest at 27%, Wilmington at 20%, Savannah at 22%, Jacksonville at 14%. Right now, it looks like the hurricane will continue to push northwest and make landfall between Charleston and somewhere down toward Beaufort. Now, that's very bad for anyone north of the area that it makes landfall. Say it makes landfall around Edisto Beach. That means some very strong onshore winds, hurricane force winds, and strong storm surges for just north of that area all the way up to around Georgetown. A very, very powerful system as it continues to push northwest. Now, as far as Hugo timing, here's how you should gear your day tomorrow. In the morning, we're going to have some rain. In fact, let's take a look at live radar. Lauren, can we take a look at radar? Okay, we have some scattered showers and thunderstorms in the area right now. More showers and thunderstorms down to the south. We have a trough that seems to be drifting westward a little bit. These are ahead of the rain bands that'll begin during the day tomorrow. Those rain bands will move onshore, bringing this rain back onshore, and the rain should start and become heavier as the day goes on, and then we'll see an extremely heavy rain later tomorrow as the hurricane draws near the coast. Back to the computer, and here's that timing once again. As far as winds, tropical storm force winds anywhere between noon and 6 p.m. That means the winds will be picking up overnight tonight. We could see some gale force winds, say around 11, 12 o'clock, and then from 12 on to around 6, some tropical storm force winds. After that, the hurricane will move, and the center will move onshore sometime between 9 and midnight, 9 o'clock tomorrow night and midnight. The high tide is at 2:13 Friday morning, so this is coming in right before the high tide. It's driving all that water onshore. What does that mean for storm surge? Right now, it looks like a 10 to 15-foot storm surge. This is if the storm system makes landfall around Edisto Beach. Now, we're guessing on landfall, but it's a good probability someplace between Charleston and, say, just around Beaufort. So Edisto is a good place to look at. That's 10 to 15 feet above the normal low mean water. What does that mean? That means the water's coming from the ocean being pushed onshore. And that means we're going to get lots of water along the coast. That's why these evacuation orders are issued. We'll have much more here in just a couple of minutes. Dan.
Early voluntary action is encouraged. There is still some discussion as to where Hurricane Hugo will make landfall. Beaufort County officials have activated the Emergency Operations Center, and it will remain open throughout the night. The evacuation decisions will be made as necessary. Residents who need assistance or have any questions may call the County Operations Center, and their number down in Beaufort, this is for Beaufort County only, is 525-7354 or 525-7353, okay? For Dorchester County has declared a state of emergency effective at 6 o'clock Thursday morning. All those people residing in mobile homes, areas prone to flooding, residences that may not withstand high winds should leave now if they have family or friends who live in a safer area. The following shelters will be open approximately 6 o'clock tomorrow morning for Dorchester County: Somerville High School, Somerville Intermediate School, the Gregg campus. Additional shelters in the upper portion of Dorchester County will be open at approximately 8 o'clock in the morning, as well as additional shelters in the Somerville area as needed. Dorchester County will initiate an evacuation order for all residences in the risk areas at probably 6 o'clock in the morning. For information, you can call the Dorchester County Sheriff's Department, the Somerville Police Department, or the Emergency Preparedness in Somerville at 821-1645.
Okay, thank you, Bill. So there we go. We have 3 counties now which are not making their mandatory evacuations yet, but they are encouraging evacuation. Dorchester and Beaufort for 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. They're going to wait until the governor makes his official announcement. But here in Charleston County now, everyone is being urged to start that evacuation now and go to a shelter which will be open at midnight. Dean and Cynthia?
Yeah, can you get Bill back by any chance, or has he already gotten, because we do have a question for him. Some phone calls have been coming
concerning the bridges.
Concerning the bridges. I don't know. Let me get Dennis Clark, because Bill just told me that he may not be able to answer that. Dennis, could I ask you a question real quickly, please? We're getting a lot of calls at Channel 4 about the bridge situation. Do we expect any problems there? What time, or I guess some people in Mount Pleasant are wondering, you know, going across I-20 to get to I-26 over the bridge. What's your advice?
Okay, as you know, we're going to be in full activation at midnight. Coast Guard representatives that we have already spoken with will be present in our EOC shortly. We have spoken with them early today and have gotten reassurance that notice to mariners have already gone out to the commercial boat traffic, and that they're aware that they should not be trying to transit our waterways because the bridge may not be operable to them. We will be securing an official bridge order through the Coast Guard and probably through 7th District Miami headquarters, if necessary, probably within the next couple hours.
In Miami, okay. And Bob's going to explain a little bit more.
Bob Sheets.
Bob Sheets is back? Okay. Right. Well, Bob Case was there earlier. Bob Sheets is back, and let's see what he has to say now about Charleston.
Well, Bill, it does look like that hurricane is heading your way. We'll probably have to put up a hurricane warning up in your area sometime tomorrow morning if it continues on this track. You can see the eye of the hurricane has popped out here. A little bit of strengthening may take place there. We're looking at a Category 2 hurricane at this time, maybe getting up to a Category 3 by the time it makes landfall up there. Of course, the big problem you're going to have up there is the storm surge. And that storm surge is the dome of water that moves ashore as the storm crosses your coast. And it's going to be critical when the storm arrives on your coast, depending on whether it's at low tide or high tide. Makes a difference of about 5 feet up in your area. So we hope that that hurricane would turn, but it's not going to do that. I think it's going to continue on in.
Okay, Bob Sheets, thank you, from the National Hurricane Center live down in Miami. I appreciate that update, and of course we'll keep a real close eye on the landfall. Right now it's just a matter of where. That storm has been continuing that northwesterly move. You saw it on Bob's monitor, and you can see it on my monitor right now, and it continues to push toward us at about 17 miles per hour. Here's the coordinates once again. If you are plotting at home, you want to know the exact position of the storm. It's located at 27.5 north, 74.0 west, max wind at 110, moving northwest at about 17 miles per hour, and it's going to continue that motion right on into the morning hours, and I think we'll see a hurricane warning, like Bob Sheets just said, from the National Hurricane Center at about 6 o'clock tomorrow morning for the Charleston area, extending down to around Beaufort. Strike probabilities are highest right here in Charleston, about 27% now, and I think we'll see hurricane conditions tomorrow night, tropical storm conditions by sometime after midday tomorrow. And that's what the timing looks like right now. As far as the center, it looks like it'll make landfall sometime between 9 and noon tomorrow. And remember that storm surge, that storm's coming to our south. That means all this water is moving onshore on top of a high tide that's coming in. That means 10 to 15 feet of water above what would normally be there. So get out. If you're along the water, definitely get out. The storm is coming, it's going to hit us, and we have time now to get away. Dean?
Okay, thank you.
Some strong words of it.
4 hours or less. And when we say hurricane conditions, we're talking about winds of at least 74 miles per hour. Once again, the area shaded in red in that hurricane warning. Here is the latest satellite picture on Hurricane Hugo. You can see it's a very, very large storm. There's the eye of the storm. It continues now to move to the northwest. Look in the outer fringes now. We already see a lot of the clouds that have pushed into South Carolina and also into East Georgia. We'll enhance this satellite picture for you right now. Where you see the reds and the yellows, that's where the strongest thunderstorms, the coldest cloud tops are located as the eye of the storm continues on that northwesterly track. Let's take a look at action radar right now as we check it out. First, this is the 180-mile range, and already you can see the western fringes of Hurricane Hugo and all the showers and thunderstorms already extending as far west as eastern Georgia. Now let's close in on the 60-mile range, and we see some thunderstorms now, especially in the lower parts of Charleston County. Looks like parts of Colleton County, generally south of Walterboro, also into Beaufort County, as these showers and thunderstorms continue to move off to the west now at about 15 miles per hour. Back to the map we go. Let's check out the flash flood watch. You might imagine there is a flash flood watch, which means flooding is possible in the areas generally from the Midlands all the way to the coastline. This extends all the way through the day today on Thursday. Rainfall potential now back in the upstate, and this is Thursday through Friday for the next 48 hours or so. About a ½ inch to 2 inches of rain is possible. About a ½ inch to 4 inches of rain in the Midlands, and up to 8 inches of rain here along the coastline. Now, there is the possibility within thunderstorm areas we could exceed the 8 inches, maybe 5 to 10 inches of rain is certainly possible in the path of Hurricane Hugo. But nonetheless, it looks like we're going to get wet, and there will be some flooding problems around the area for the rest of the day today and continuing into tonight. Here are the latest coordinates as of 6 o'clock in the morning. 28.6 north latitude, 75.9 west longitude, wind speed still at 110 miles per hour. Moving to the northwest at 17, the central pressure down just a bit. This might mean it's strengthening just a tad 28.08 inches of mercury. There's the track, and there's where it's located right now. Now, the track of Hurricane Hugo, the projected track, brings it to the South Carolina coast, probably between Savannah and Charleston, sometime during the early morning hours on Friday, probably 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, the way it looks right now. Now, obviously, the track of the storm is very, very crucial. North and northeast of the center is where most of the heaviest weather is located. So let's say it does go to the Savannah area or the Beaufort area. Obviously, that would put Charleston north and northeast of that particular center, the eye of Hurricane Hugo. That means a lot of the heavy weather coming. What might you expect? Well, maybe a storm surge of 8 to 12 feet above normal. We're talking about maybe a normal tide of 5 feet. There is a high tide about 2 o'clock.
I say so. Very proud to be so. I just want to say to the people of the Low Country that we'll all go through this together. We'll make every opportunity available to you to get you back on the air, Charlie, just as soon as we possibly can. Our primary goal in all of this has been from the beginning and will continue to be the safety of our viewers. I don't know when we'll see you again, folks, but it will be just as soon as it possibly can be when this is over. So don't give up on us. Just keep clicking back and forth, and we'll be back to see you as soon as we possibly can.
Make every effort, as Mr. Crump mentioned, to get back on the air as quickly as possible. So those of you with battery-powered television sets, or those of you back inland who will perhaps continue to have power in Orangeburg, Walterboro, continue to check Channel 5, and if there's a way to do it, our engineering department will get us back on the air.
My house is in one of those subdivisions that is predicted to be underwater. So where are we heading, up to Somerville?
Yes, we're going to Somerville. And Bill, those material things that we've left behind are simply just that, things. And I love my pets, and I've taken care of to see that they're safe, and my wife is safe. I'm not necessarily in that order, and I'm going to be safe. So
I just got my dogs taken care of too. So I'm like you. Charlie, we were going to go back to the Emergency Preparedness Office. We do have that. All right, I guess it's time to say goodbye, Charlie.
Okay.
Let's wish them good luck.
And we hope to be back on the air as rapidly as our engineering department can get us, and good luck.
We hope you all weather this well. That's it from our studios in downtown Charleston, folks. We're now closing up shop. We hope to see you sometime tomorrow, as early as possible. We now go back live to Debbie Chard at the Emergency Preparedness Office in North Charleston. Debbie?
Bill, we are here live at the Emergency Preparedness Office. That's off Leeds Avenue.
Okay. Now, as I say, we are going to be signing off after this broadcast, but you will continue broadcasting for at least a while on Q107.
On Q107 radio, we will broadcast for a while. You bet, until we can.
Don't know exactly how long.
No, it's going to be a long, about 15 hours from now. We'll be report back with you as soon as we can after the storm, and we'll have complete coverage after the storm of the cleanup.
We have a couple of announcements to make here. Stall High School has been opened as a shelter. The First Baptist Church in Ravenel has been opened as a shelter. Ladson Elementary has room for about 100 more people. Lincoln High School in McClellanville is full, but Lang Middle School has now been opened as a shelter. And the Williamsburg County Civil Defense Office is asking for volunteers with four-wheel drive vehicles to call 344-9330. That's 344-9330. Volunteers with four-wheel drive vehicles, presumably for duty after the storm has passed.
We'll need a lot of four-wheel drive vehicles. We'll need a lot of trucks and anything that can help move or get into areas that will be covered with a lot of water.
Okay. Well, Bill, my wife and I are going to seek shelter now.
Okay, and we'll be here for a while and see what happens after that.
Good luck to you. Good luck to all of you, and stay safe.
You bet.
WCIV Channel 4 operates on an assigned frequency of 66 to 72 megahertz with an effective radiated power of 100,000 watts visual and 20,000 watts aural. The Channel 4 studios are located on Highway 703 in Mount Pleasant and transmitter located on Seawee Road in Awanda, South Carolina. We invite you to tune in this morning for outstanding programs from the NBC television network and our local programs on the Low Country's foremost television station, Channel 4. And now, a very pleasant good evening.
27.91 inches. You can see that continual northwest movement, but late this afternoon made somewhat of a turn to the north, and that means from Charleston up to around Myrtle Beach, that's the area most susceptible right now to see the eye of the storm, which could pass overhead maybe by as early as midnight. Now, obviously, we are certainly feeling the effects of Hugo already with heavy rains, and already the winds are really just starting to pick up. Let's take you back in time now. Here's the way we looked at 9 o'clock last night. We'll move it up to 1 o'clock this morning, continually moving off to the northwest now. Here it is at 7 o'clock this morning. You can see a defined eye as we continue to put it into motion. By 11 o'clock, continuing its northwest movement, still a larger eye, was about 50 nautical miles in diameter. At 1 o'clock this afternoon, there it is. By 2 o'clock this afternoon, moving just a little bit more, also continuing that movement as we move into 3 o'clock this afternoon. And the last picture we received was at 4 o'clock this afternoon. And here it is right now, continuing to move off to the northwest. Generally, as it continues, looks like between Charleston and Myrtle Beach, that appears to be the area it's heading in.
Is midnight Eastern Time. The darkness of night simply enhancing the drama. The most vulnerable areas include those barrier islands and parts of the coastline that are barely above sea level. Overnight, the islands and the coast will be exposed to much higher seas than usual. It is normal for high tides to run up to 4 feet. The storm surge, which is basically a wave of water pushed in front of the hurricane, is forecast to add as much as 17 feet of water to high tide. On top of that, waves driven by hurricane winds across open water could be as high as 30 feet. It is going to be a very long night along the coast. It has already been a long day. We have several reports, and we're going to begin with ABC's Chris Bury, who is on the South Carolina coast.
Here on Folly Island near Charleston, the enormous seas, if they materialize, could not come at a worse time. They are due tonight at high tide under heavy rain, and they are powerful enough even to scare county officials who have seen many hurricanes before.
That is the killer of a hurricane, the tidal surge. The surge for the islands is going to mean massive destruction.
That explains the urgency in today's evacuations. Police ran door to door searching for stragglers, but most people were already packed up and moving out.
Oh, it's just a dangerous situation, and we're really afraid we're going to lose everything.
It is considered so dangerous that nursing homes in low areas evacuated the frail and the sick. Even the Air Force Base at Charleston sent its planes to safer skies. All roads leading inland were badly tangled in traffic.
Hurricane Hugo's leading edge of rain has begun hitting the coast.
And people with nowhere else to go moved into temporary shelters.
I know that this place is fairly strong and nothing's going to come in on us anyway.
As the storm intensified, so did efforts to protect downtown Charleston. This street is only 2 feet above sea level, and shopkeepers here worry that flooding could put them under. Amelia Wolf doubts that her bookstore will survive.
Every book that gets wet is going to be non-saleable. It would ruin them. We're getting things as high up on the shelves as we can.
At a downtown bank, all these money bags were instead filled with sand. But these carpenters were raking in the cash today, charging $100 to put up a $20 piece of plywood.
Tell us what Hugo means for business.
Means big bucks.
But Hugo could cost the Carolinas plenty. By tomorrow, these homes are expected to be underwater. Tonight, there is nothing anyone here can do about it but wait and hope. Chris Bury, ABC News, Charleston, South Carolina.
One way to see how large and powerful a storm Hugo is to look at it from above. The eye is 20 miles across. Winds gusting up to 135 miles an hour extend out 140 miles from the center of the storm, and gale force winds reach out as far as 250 miles. And those gale force winds are already being felt along the coast of Georgia. ABC's Mike Von Fremd is there.
By the time civil defense sirens alerted Tybee Island that the hurricane had intensified, there was almost no one left to hear them. People on Tybee Island got out early. But to the north, on Hilton Head, it was a last-minute scramble that resulted in a colossal traffic jam. Many homeowners worked till the last minute, then made a mad dash.
It's coming this way. I'm getting out of here.
They take the threat of a hurricane seriously here because there is no high ground. On both Hilton Head and Tybee Island, the highest elevation is just 16 feet above sea level.
We're very low. We're a barrier island, and we're right here on the ocean front
we think that the storm surge could be devastating.
Well, if it hits at high tide, it could be very severe.
Many of the people leaving the barrier islands are spending the night here in Savannah. But when the hurricane hits, the Savannah River is also expected to surge. The historic 200-year-old buildings along its banks are just 5 feet above sea level. Even here, 17 miles inland, flood damage is expected to be heavy. Mike Von Fremd, ABC News, Savannah.
In addition to the hurricane warning for the coast, a hurricane watch extends north to Virginia. A tropical storm watch goes all the way up to Delaware. Over the next few days, Hugo may affect much of this.
Hurricane Hugo, what it left behind. The most ferocious storm in 35 years was, just as advertised, a monster. The South Carolina coastline tonight, a reminder of nature's power.
NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. Residents and officials are still at it tonight, and they will be for some time to come, sizing up the damage from Hurricane Hugo when it charged ashore along the South Carolina coastline late last night and early this morning. At least 10 people were killed, and the cost of repairs, who knows for sure tonight. Hugo did its greatest damage between the barrier islands near Charleston and Myrtle Beach, a resort community. Even with plenty of advance warning, no one could hold back the fury of Hugo. President Bush has declared much of South Carolina a disaster area. And as you'll see now in these reports by NBC's Ed Rabel and Fred Briggs, disaster is almost inadequate to describe the damage.
The barrier islands of South Carolina were no barrier to Hurricane Hugo. These tiny spits of land are exposed to the ocean and were the first hit by the storm. Hugo came ashore here at high tide with 135-mile-an-hour winds and slammed a wall of water 20 feet high across the beach and onto beachfront property.
It's pretty devastating. It's sad.
At Kiowa Island, the billion-dollar resort and residential community developed since 1975, towering pine trees were broken off like twigs and slammed onto rooftops. Sullivan's Island also was devastated. On the southern end of the island, 90% of the homes sustained major damage. The Isle of Palms, another resort community, has homes built to weather hurricanes, but Hugo was too much for many of them. An entire marina, yachts, docks, and all were pushed aside as if by some giant hand, stacking boats on each other like toys, as many as 6 high. A massive swing bridge linking one of the islands to the mainland was manhandled by Hugo, a testimony to the incredible power of the hurricane. Squeezed between the resort islands is Folly Beach, a kind of working-class resort. 80% of the houses on the beach are beyond repair. On the ground, Folly Island looks even worse. The houses that were destroyed look as if they were hit by bombs in a war.
We'll just start picking and shoveling as we go, but we'll build it back.
The island was so battered that returning residents could not find their homes.
I used to walk down this road for my exercise every day, and as you can see, there won't be any more walking on this road.
Everybody we talked to here said they plan to rebuild, even though barrier islands are extremely vulnerable to hurricanes. The reason for coming back, they say, is what they call the joy of living right on the beach. Ed Rabel, NBC News, on the barrier islands.
It takes an aerial view to see how broad the brush of Hugo's devastation was. Beach homes swept from their foundations. Other homes just crushed.
What are you going to do next? Cry a while. I don't know. No idea. Make a nice parking lot here now. That's about it. But it's not worth rebuilding.
The penthouse of a condo suddenly roofless. And mobile homes becoming islands. The seawalls of Myrtle Beach were torn away in spots. And the fishing piers were disassembled like stacks of toothpicks. Myrtle Beach today, empty, without electricity, telephones, water, and without its residents, who have been lined up for miles trying to get back to their homes and blocked by state police and the National Guard. The mayor said they could return, but the governor overruled him. That's partly because of sanitation problems, sewage getting into the water mains. A few residents, like the owners of this beachfront apartment complex, did get in and wish they hadn't.
Oh, our bedroom bed is sitting right in the middle of downstairs apartment all the way up from the penthouse on the second floor. I have no idea how it got there, but it's there.
It will take months before Myrtle Beach resembles the crowded, carefree resort it once was. Even the beaches took some losses to the surges. And when the governor eventually tells its citizens they can go home again, hundreds will find none there. Fred Briggs, NBC News, Myrtle Beach.
Charleston, South Carolina, that beautiful and historic city is where Hugo came ashore, and it was heavily damaged by wind and water. NBC's Robert Hager spent the night in Charleston.
Historic Charleston is hurting. Officials have closed the hard-hit city to outsiders and called a dusk-to-dawn curfew. This after storm damage the mayor characterizes as unprecedented in local memory. Hundreds of vehicles smashed by trees. Boats lifted out of the water and deposited on streets. The roof blown off City Hall, workmen rushing to repair it. Communications with nearby islands cut off.
So I've been through storms, but not like this one.
I was scared to death during this hurricane.
Front steps disconnected from the house which goes with them, which was pushed 2 blocks away. But Charleston's most prized historic buildings were mercifully spared, including the stately mansions along the Battery. There was some looting during the storm. This man owns a clothing store.
They came in, I think, during the eye, and they cleaned out the store pretty good.
Others took pains to have their property protected. And National Guardsmen were deployed to the area of the looting. Everywhere, residents recalled the unbelievable force of the storm last night. A figure struggles through pounding rain. An automobile abandoned. By day, Linda Trevelstead found her front door blocked by a huge tree.
It was really scary. My kids were crying.
And Sylvia Tress, her bedroom ceiling suddenly had a hole torn in it during the height of the storm.
It's just a mess. I'm just hoping my insurance covers it all.
Officials admit there'll be a long time cleaning up. Tonight, the city and the county of Charleston both said it may take as long as 2 weeks to restore just electricity to everyone. Tom?
Bob, they had a lot of time to prepare for this storm. What about the food and water stocks in Charleston? Are they okay?
Well, yes, they did have a lot of time to prepare, as you say, and so the food stocks were adequate. Water is a little problem. It's impure because of the storm right now, and ironically, the authorities told people that to make it pure, to drink it, they should be sure to cook it before they can drink it. But of course, without electricity, most people can't cook it.
And on the barrier islands for a long time now, environmentalists and others have been warning that this very thing could happen to all of that new construction out there. Are they able to get supplies to those people who were stranded out there as well?
Well, there is a little problem with food in some of the very isolated areas, and because of that, the Coast Guard pitched in today and made one run up to one isolated community to take food stocks in. I imagine we'll see a little more of that in coming days.
All right, thanks very much. Robert Hager, who had a long night and a long day in Charleston, South Carolina. Once Hugo left the water, it quickly went from hurricane strength to a tropical storm over land, but even at that, it does remain a formidable presence. It moved farther west than forecasters expected before turning north, and the wind and rain are expected north into Canada through tomorrow morning. NBC's Kenley Jones tells us tonight, even as a tropical storm, Hugo was terrifying.
Some coastal residents drove 100 miles inland to this motel in Florence, South Carolina, seeking shelter from Hugo, but they didn't find it. One of several tornadoes spawned by the storm blew the roof off in the middle of the night. Darlene Young is expecting her third child this weekend.
I was holding part of the roof up to keep all the weight off my kids and trying not to go into labor.
Frank Lupton and his wife lost their van when the roof collapsed, but no one at the motel lost their life.
I feel good we're both alive. That's the main thing. I can replace anything, you know, but I can't replace another human life.
While the most widespread damage from Hugo was along the coast, the fury of the storm was still evident miles inland.
Although winds had diminished by the time they reached Florence, they were still powerful enough to snap and uproot trees with ease. As hurricanes move inland, they change character and eventually weaken. Cut off from the warm ocean water, which gives them energy, they begin to break up as they are pulled apart by the friction of moving over land. But even as they die, they can still cause trouble.
A lot more showers, thunderstorms, becomes very disturbed, unstable air, and that's what creates the heavy rains and then the flash floods.
Hugo left some flooding in its wake today as it moved along the Appalachian Range. but it was moving so fast that it didn't have time to drop vast amounts of rainwater. Moving so quickly, in fact, that behind it the sun was shining brightly, just a few hours after Hugo passed by. Kimley Jones, NBC News, Florence, South Carolina.
When it was clear that Hurricane Hugo would be the worst storm in 35 years to hit the southeastern coast of the United States, most people in harm's way got out to higher ground and safer quarters. Most people. NBC's Jim Cummins and some new friends decided to ride out Hugo.
6:15 p.m. Thursday. Most people had already fled Charleston's coastline. But Colonel Bayard Pickett and his family were staying behind to face Hugo. The retired Marine was ready to ride out another hurricane at his oceanfront house, the fourth in his lifetime. He wasn't worried.
Well, we all, I think, would be around 115 to 25 miles an hour. And the house has been through 135 that I know of.
Charleston Harbor forecast, a hurricane warning in effect.
7:30 p.m. Nobody seems to care about the warnings as Pickett, his wife, daughter, 2 grandchildren, and neighbors enjoy a shrimp dinner. 9 p.m. The lights go out. Hugo's winds are rattling the house. Everyone was prepared for the blackout, but now the radio messages were more ominous.
Once this stuff starts coming in, there's no telling what's going to happen.
Worried relatives telephone for reassurance.
Honey, yes, it's really windy, and I mean, the doors are whistling and it's pouring rain, but I mean, mainly we're okay.
11:45 p.m. It is calm as the eye of the hurricane is passing over Pickett's house. But he and the neighbors make an alarming discovery. There has been a storm surge.
I was surprised when I saw the waves breaking on the second and third step.
The water hasn't been this high in 30 years.
We've got to go before the wind picks up anymore.
12:30 a.m., the backside of the hurricane strikes. Fearing another storm surge, the Picketts and their friends evacuate the house. At a neighbor's place, Mrs. Pickett says they've never had to do that before.
Frightening. In fact, I think I've been more nervous during this hurricane than any other I've been through.
By 6 a.m., the winds were dying down.
The storm subsided at dawn this morning. The Picketts and their neighbors got their first look at the damage.
It was devastating.
The basement is demolished, and I can't believe it.
I never expected it to be this bad.
Colonel Pickett says if such a powerful hurricane ever again threatens this neighborhood of historic homes, he would probably not stay here to face it. The old Marine is glad it's over. Jim Cummins, NBC News, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina.
That's nightly news for this week of Hurricane Hugo. I'm Tom Brokaw. Maria Shriver will be here tomorrow night. I'll see you again on Monday.